Today, we're going to unlock a mystery that's been sitting cold for over 60 years. It's a story about a Hollywood icon, a really strange inheritance, and a single locked-up crate. So, our story kicks off not with a movie star, but with a guy named Raymond Maddox, a retired mechanical engineer. After he passes away, his kids, Claire and Danny, go to his property in rural Massachusetts to sort things out. And what they find in his barn? Well, it's a world of pure, absolute precision. I mean, every tool has its own outlined spot on the wall. Every single part is labeled. This was a man who left nothing to chance. But right in the middle of this perfectly ordered universe, they find one thing that just doesn't belong. A big, heavy wooden crate, about 4 feet square, and it is sealed tight with carriage bolts and a high-security medical lock. Now, you have to understand, this isn't some padlock from a hardware store. These things are designed to be pretty much unpickable. For 3 whole decades, their quiet, careful father never said a word about this crate. It was a total secret. Later, a neighbor gave them a clue as to why. She said he felt it was a heavy responsibility he'd taken on that he didn't know how to put down. Whatever was in there, he guarded it until the day he died. The only hint they had was this series of stenciled numbers painted on the side of the crate. To most of us, it would look like just a random code, but if you know your automotive history, well, this number is the key that unlocks an iconic American tragedy. See, that number wasn't random at all. On a Porsche 550 Spyder from that era, there are 3 main components that have permanent, traceable, factory serial numbers. You've got the chassis, the engine, and the transaxle, the gearbox assembly. And serial number 146 belonged to one very specific and very, very famous car. This wasn't just some spare part. It was a ghost, a relic from a legendary tragedy. That stenciled number proved that inside the crate was the transaxle from the silver Porsche 550 Spyder, the one the iconic actor James Dean was driving when he was killed back on September 30th, 1955. Now, this is where the story gets really, really weird. Just 7 days before the crash, Dean is showing off his brand new car to the famous actor Sir Alec Guinness. And Guinness, he later wrote that he just had this awful feeling. He said the car looked sinister, and then he gave Dean that chillingly specific warning. And what did Dean do? He just laughed it off. I mean, he was 24 years old, on the verge of becoming one of the biggest stars in the world. He probably felt invincible. 1 week later, almost to the hour Guinness had predicted, he was dead. Killed at a highway intersection. He'd only owned the car for 9 days. After Dean's death, the wreckage of Little Bastard seemed to carve its own path of destruction. Parts that were sold off were involved in this whole series of fatal and frankly bizarre accidents, which is what created the whole legend of the cursed car. And then, in 1960, the main body of the car just vanished from a sealed train car. Poof, gone. It has never been seen again. Which, of course, brings us right back to Raymond Maddox. Why on earth would this rational, methodical man buy a piece of this haunted legend back in 1990, go to the trouble of having it authenticated not just once but twice, and then just lock it away in his barn for 30 years? He never saw himself as an owner. He felt like he was its custodian. His neighbor remembered him saying that the object had been through a terrible thing. He truly believed it deserved to have someone just pay attention to it and keep it safe, not just get passed around from collector to collector. And so, for 3 decades, that's exactly what he did. He quietly fulfilled that duty. They said he would check that medical lock on the crate every single night before he went to bed. He kept the secret, and by doing that, it really seems like he stopped that chain of tragedy that was so connected to the car. So after he died, this incredibly strange inheritance, and the moral weight that came with it, fell to his kids, Claire and Danny. I mean, what do you do with something like that? An object that's supposedly cursed, but is also, without a doubt, a priceless piece of American history. The choice they faced was crystal clear. On one side, you've got a potential financial windfall. On the other, you have this moral obligation that was passed down from their father. Do you cash in on a famous tragedy, or do you see his legacy through to the end? And let's be real, the financial pull was huge. A Porsche authenticator estimated the transaxle could go for at least $500,000 at auction, and probably a lot more, especially because its history was so perfectly documented. But in the end, their father had the last word. They found a letter he'd been working on for over 20 years. In it, he didn't give them a direct order, but he gave them a principle. He said keeping it locked up in a box forever wasn't the right answer, but selling it just for the money would be a betrayal of what it was. So their final decision, it wasn't about the money. It was about finishing the quiet job their father had started. They decided this object's journey couldn't end up in another rich guy's private collection. It needed to be moved from a private burden into a public lesson. And so, that's what they did. The Maddox children donated the transaxle. It would finally get to be seen by the public. Its incredible story told right in the city where James Dean's Hollywood legend was born, and where that little silver car began its final, fateful journey. Now here's the part that's really gonna get you. Of all the major traceable parts of Little Bastard that were recovered and sold off after the crash, every single one of them was later tied to another accident, another injury, or another death. Every part, except this one. The transaxle, the piece that sat quietly in a crate for 30 years. It drew no more blood. And maybe that's because one careful, quiet man understood that some stories aren't meant to be exploited, but to be contained. So what's the takeaway from all this? The story of this one part makes you really wonder where the line is between coincidence and an actual curse. Was it just a string of unbelievable bad luck? Or did one man actually break the chain by choosing not to own a piece of history, but to simply care for it? In the end, the story of James Dean and his car is one that sticks with us because it feels like this timeless warning. He was warned, he was sure of himself, and he laughed. His story is just this chilling reminder of the price you can pay for being young, brilliant, and absolutely certain that you're unstoppable.